Emma, Jake, and Mark seemed like an ordinary trio, friends caught in a simple love triangle. But beneath the surface of their quiet suburban lives simmered a dangerous obsession that would soon erupt into a night of unimaginable violence, turning friendship and love into a brutal bloodbath no one saw coming. In a quiet suburban neighborhood where the streets were lined with neat houses and the sound of children playing echoed in the afternoons, three lives were about to collide in a way no one could have imagined. Emma was a young woman admired by many for her warmth and kindness. She had a smile that could light up a room, and a personality that made her easy to talk to. Emma was in a relationship with Jake, a steady and dependable man. Jake was known for his calm nature and had dreams of building a future with Emma. Together, they seemed like the perfect couple, the kind that neighbors admired and envied. But beneath the surface of this seemingly happy relationship, another story was quietly unfolding. Jake's best friend, Mark, had been in their lives for years. The three of them often spent time together, sharing dinners, movie nights, and weekend outings. Mark was charming in a different way, more intense and unpredictable. While Jake offered stability, Mark brought excitement and a wild edge that attracted Emma in ways she couldn't fully explain. Mark had always been close to Jake, but over time, his feelings for Emma grew beyond friendship. What started as casual glances and lingering looks slowly turned into something deeper and more dangerous. Emma found herself caught in a complicated web of emotions. She cared for Jake, valued their history, but she couldn't deny the connection she felt with Mark. It was confusing and frightening, but she kept these feelings hidden, fearing the damage it could cause. The tension between the three was invisible to most, but it was there, building like a storm on the horizon. Jake trusted Mark implicitly, unaware of the undercurrents threatening his relationship. Mark, on the other hand, wrestled with jealousy and frustration. His desire for Emma grew more urgent, yet he masked it behind the guise of friendship. At times, he would disappear for hours, leaving Emma wondering about the darkness he kept locked inside. Emma's friends noticed changes in her behavior. She was more withdrawn, anxious, and sometimes distant. She tried to push her feelings aside, focusing on the life she shared with Jake. But every moment with Mark seemed to pull her further into a secret she could no longer control. She was caught between loyalty and desire, safety and risk. At the same time, Mark's past began to cast shadows over the present. Few knew about his troubled history, years marked by anger, failed relationships, and brief brushes with the law. These past demons fueled his obsession, making him unpredictable and dangerous. The charming mask he wore was thin, hiding a volatile side ready to explode. As days passed, the quiet neighborhood remained unaware of the ticking time bomb in their midst. What looked like a simple love triangle was actually a complex and fragile situation, balancing on the edge of disaster. The story of Emma, Jake, and Mark was not just about love, but about the secrets people keep and the consequences when those secrets come to light. In the calm of this suburban life, no one could have guessed the tragedy that was about to unfold. A brutal clash fueled by passion and betrayal, forever changing the lives of everyone involved. Mark's feelings for Emma grew stronger with each passing day, turning into a dangerous obsession that began to consume his every thought. What had once been friendly affection twisted into jealousy and possessiveness. He found himself watching Emma closely, analyzing her every move, her every smile, looking for signs that she might return his feelings. Mark's obsession wasn't just about love, It was about control, about the desperate need to have something he felt slipping away. Emma noticed subtle changes in Mark's behavior, the way he would linger longer than necessary when they met. His eyes filled with something dark and intense that unsettled her. Sometimes he would call or message late at night, demanding answers or explanations for things she hadn't even realized mattered. Emma felt trapped between wanting to maintain peace and fearing what Mark might do if pushed too far. She tried to keep a distance, but Mark's presence was hard to escape. His charm, mixed with an underlying threat, made her wary. Jake, meanwhile, remained unaware of the growing storm. He trusted Mark like a brother and believed Emma's relationship with Mark was nothing more than friendship. Jake's calm and steady nature made him blind to the signs of danger. He often encouraged the trio to spend time together, thinking that would strengthen their bonds. But every moment Mark spent with Emma without Jake only deepened the unseen tension. Mark's past played a significant role in shaping his behavior. Few people knew about the struggles he had faced: anger issues, a short temper that had caused fights, and a history of troubled relationships. His past wasn't clean, and he carried the weight of regret and resentment. These buried emotions fed the dark side of his obsession with Emma. He was not just fighting for her affection, he was fighting to prove something to himself, to regain a sense of power he had lost long ago. Emma's own fears grew with every encounter. She began keeping a private journal, writing down her feelings and the moments that made her uneasy. The diary entries revealed a woman torn between hope and fear, struggling to understand how a man she once considered a friend could become a threat. She feared Mark's obsession would explode into violence, but felt powerless to stop it. Her world was closing in, and no one seemed to notice the danger lurking beneath the surface. As days turned into weeks, the love triangle grew more fragile and volatile. Small arguments between Emma and Mark became heated exchanges. Mark's jealousy sometimes erupted in anger, frightening Emma and making her question how far he might go. Yet, the close-knit group continued to meet, laugh, and pretend everything was normal. The facade was slipping, but no one was willing to confront the truth. The community around them remained unaware of the tension. Friends and neighbors saw three young people caught in a complicated relationship, but could not imagine the depths of obsession and fear beneath the smiles. What appeared as a youthful love triangle was actually a powder keg ready to ignite. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything. Mark's obsession, fueled by a troubled past and unrelenting jealousy, was reaching a breaking point. Emma's fear and confusion were growing, and Jake's trust in both was about to be shattered. What began as love and friendship was spiraling into a dangerous game with deadly consequences. No one could predict how quickly the situation would turn from emotional turmoil into a brutal bloodbath that would leave lives shattered and a community in shock. The night that everything changed arrived with heavy rain pouring down, casting a dark, stormy shadow over the quiet town. Jake had planned a small celebration at his apartment to surprise Emma, a simple evening to remind her of the life they had built together, full of hope and promise. The rain made the streets slick and empty, and the usually warm apartment felt colder than usual, as if something unseen was waiting to unfold. Emma arrived, expecting a peaceful night with Jake, unaware that Mark had also decided to come. Mark's mind was racing, filled with anger and desperation. He had planned to confront Emma about her feelings and the distance growing between them. Mark was convinced that Jake didn't truly deserve her, and that Emma's heart belonged to him. The obsession that had been simmering beneath the surface for months now boiled over, ready to explode. When Mark appeared at Jake's apartment, the mood shifted instantly. The air thickened with tension, and an unspoken threat hung between the three. Jake greeted Mark as usual, unsuspecting of the storm about to break. Emma's heart pounded with fear and confusion. She had hoped for a quiet night, but was now caught between two men whose emotions were about to ignite. The conversation started quietly, but quickly escalated. Mark's voice grew louder, his words sharp and accusing. He demanded to know why Emma was with Jake if her feelings were elsewhere. Emma tried to calm him down, pleading for peace, but Mark's jealousy and frustration were too strong. The intensity of his emotions was overwhelming, clouding his judgment. Jake tried to step in, hoping to diffuse the situation, but Mark was beyond reason. His anger took control, turning into something violent and uncontrollable. The confrontation became a struggle, a brutal fight fueled by years of hidden feelings, betrayal, and rage. Fists flew, furniture was overturned, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the apartment. Emma, desperate to stop the violence, tried to separate the two men. In the chaos, she was caught in the crossfire. The brutal struggle left both Jake and Mark severely injured. The night that was meant to celebrate love turned into a terrifying nightmare. Blood spilled on the floor, staining the place where promises had once been made. Neighbors heard the commotion and called the police, but by the time help arrived, the damage was done. Jake and Mark lay motionless, victims of a savage fight born from jealousy and obsession. Emma was barely conscious, her body bruised and broken, a silent witness to the horror. The investigation that followed uncovered chilling details. Mark's diary revealed his long-planned confrontation, his obsession mapped out in cold, calculated words. Emma's journal showed her growing fear and desperation, a tragic record of a woman trapped in a deadly situation. What seemed like a personal tragedy was a brutal bloodbath that shocked the entire community. The love triangle had exploded in the worst way possible, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and shattered lives. The quiet neighborhood was forever changed, haunted by the night when love turned into violence. This night marked the darkest chapter in the lives of Emma, Jake, and Mark, a story of passion and betrayal that spiraled beyond control, ending in a brutal act that no one saw coming, but everyone would remember. The days following the brutal night were filled with confusion, fear, and unanswered questions. The police arrived quickly after the neighbors' calls, but the scene they found was haunting. Jake and Mark lay motionless, victims of the violent confrontation, and Emma was barely conscious, her body bruised and broken. The quiet suburban apartment had turned into a crime scene, a place of tragedy that would soon reveal dark secrets. The investigation began in earnest. Detectives combed through the apartment, searching for clues to understand what had led to such a violent outburst. It wasn't long before they discovered a hidden diary belonging to Mark. The pages were filled with obsessive thoughts about Emma, detailed plans for the confrontation, and disturbing entries about his growing jealousy and anger toward Jake. The diary painted a chilling picture of a man consumed by obsession, waiting for the perfect moment to act. Alongside Mark's diary, the police found Emma's journal, tucked away in a drawer. Her writings told a different story, one of fear, confusion, and desperation. Emma had documented her growing anxiety over Mark's behavior, the late-night calls, the intense emotions she couldn't escape. She had written about her attempts to keep peace, to maintain her relationship with Jake, and her fears about what Mark might do if pushed too far. Her journal was a heartbreaking glimpse into the mind of someone trapped in a dangerous situation with no easy way out. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they realized this was not a random act of violence, but a carefully planned, and deeply personal attack. Mark had spent months building up to that night, his obsession turning into a dangerous fixation that exploded into bloodshed. The calm neighborhood was shattered by a truth no one had seen coming. The community struggled to come to terms with what had happened. Friends and neighbors who had known Emma, Jake, and Mark were shocked by the revelations. The trio had seemed normal, even close-knit. The violent end to their story left everyone searching for answers and trying to understand how love and friendship could turn so deadly. Emma's survival brought both relief and sorrow. She was left with physical scars and emotional wounds that would take years to heal. Her testimony became crucial in the investigation, providing insight into the toxic dynamic that had been hidden beneath the surface. Though shaken and traumatized, Emma's courage in speaking out helped bring clarity to the case. The media soon caught wind of the story, and the quiet town found itself under a harsh spotlight. The love triangle that ended in a brutal bloodbath became a cautionary tale about obsession, jealousy, and the dangerous consequences when emotions spiral out of control. People began to talk openly about the signs they had missed, the warning signals that had gone unnoticed. In the end, the investigation revealed a heartbreaking truth. A mixture of love, betrayal, and dark secrets had led to the destruction of 3 lives. The story of Emma, Jake, and Mark was not just a crime story, but a tragic reminder of how quickly things can go wrong when fear and obsession take over. The scars left behind would serve as a lasting warning to those who might find themselves caught in similar dangerous webs. The community vowed to remember the victims and to learn from the tragedy, hoping that no one else would suffer the same fate. The investigation closed one chapter, but opened a conversation that would continue long after the last page was turned. The trial that followed the horrific events was one of the most talked about cases in the town's recent history. As the courtroom filled with anxious faces, the community sought justice and answers for the brutal bloodbath that had shattered so many lives. The prosecution laid out a detailed case, painting a picture of Mark as a man driven by dangerous obsession and jealousy. They presented the diaries, the evidence from the crime scene, and Emma's testimony, which was both heartbreaking and powerful. Her courage in facing the court gave the story a deeply personal and emotional dimension. The defense tried to argue that Mark's actions were not premeditated, but the result of a sudden loss of control during a heated moment. They highlighted his troubled past and claimed he was overwhelmed by his emotions. Yet, the chilling entries in his diary and the careful planning revealed throughout the investigation made it clear that this was more than a crime of passion. It was a calculated act fueled by obsession. Emma's role in the trial was difficult and painful. She relived the night of violence, recounting the fear and confusion she experienced. Her words helped the jury understand the toxic environment she had been trapped in, the manipulation and control that Mark exerted over her. Despite her own trauma, Emma's bravery shone through, becoming a symbol of resilience amid tragedy. As the trial progressed, the community watched closely, many grappling with mixed emotions. The heartbreak for Jake's loss, the shock at Mark's transformation from a friend to a killer, and the sympathy for Emma's plight created a complex web of feelings. The story was no longer just about a love triangle. It had become a powerful lesson about the dangers of unchecked obsession and the devastating effects it can have on people's lives. When the verdict was finally announced, the courtroom fell silent. Mark was found guilty of murder, his actions deemed both intentional and premeditated. The judge's sentence was severe but necessary, a reflection of the gravity of his crimes and the irreversible damage caused. For many, the verdict brought a sense of closure. though the wounds left by the tragedy would take much longer to heal. In the aftermath, Emma faced a long road to recovery. The physical scars from the violent night were only part of the battle. Emotionally, she struggled with trauma and loss, but gradually found support through counseling and the care of those around her. Her story inspired conversations about mental health, domestic violence, and the importance of recognizing warning signs before it's too late. The town itself was changed forever. The neighborhood that once felt safe now carried the weight of the terrible events. Community members became more vigilant, looking out for one another in new ways. Local groups organized awareness programs aimed at preventing violence born from jealousy and obsession, hoping to stop history from repeating itself. The story of Emma, Jake, and Mark serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly love can turn dark when trust is broken and obsession takes hold. It is a cautionary tale about the fragile line between passion and destruction, and the consequences when that line is crossed. Though justice was served, the tragedy left a lasting shadow. The memory of the brutal bloodbath lingers, a somber warning that beneath the surface of even the most ordinary lives, darkness can sometimes lurk, waiting to emerge with devastating force.